3OS fans, it's Pete today. No Robin, he's absolutely fine. You don't need to ask about his whereabouts or anything or when he was last seen. Everything's great. Now you might be wondering, what's Pete doing here alone and unsupervised? Well, I'm going to tell you. We're going to be talking about Shadespire, obviously, from the cards you can see. And I'm going to be talking about some decks and some strategies that I'm going to be trying in my new Sepulchral Guard matchup. Now I'm going to be playing a couple of games soon against Robin, different opponents, and I'm not sure which deck I want to use where yet, but I want to try a couple of different setups. And this first one I'm going to go through with you is going to be all about objectives. Now, these guys, they're not known for their strength, but what they can do is they can hang around for a while with the Warden's ability, obviously, to bring people back from the dead. You can pretty much have your guys hang about for a lot longer than, well, a lot of other people might. So this strategy is based nearly all around trying to grab as many of the objectives on the top board as you can at any one time. So I'm going to run through the deck, try and give you my logic as to why I've built this deck, how I've built this deck, and obviously if you have any problems and you think, Pete, you're an idiot, you don't know what you're talking about, then do please chip in and let me know in the comments. So I'm going to start off here with the objective cards themselves, and then I'm going to go through afterwards what I've chosen to go with those, try and help me score them. So let's go through the deck. The first one on the top here, Claim the City. This one is basically get 5 or more objectives, or if you're against just one person, score this in an end phase if you hold every objective. Now it's hard to do, but I think that if you can get some mobility with your Sepulchral Guard, then this is a real winner. 5 glory is pretty much a game winner most of the time. The next one is Skills Unforgotten. But Pete, you said you were just about to do a load all around objective capturing, and that's got nothing to do with objectives. Well, you know what? Shut up. It's my channel. But on a serious note, I just love this card. It did me no favours in our last battle report, which you can watch up there. But it's a handy one to get a mid-turn glory, which, as Robin's told you before in another video, which again you can watch from a link up there, they're always handy to have. March of the Dead. Pete, you're really starting to go off point now, I hear you saying that. But you know what? That's just the mushrooms. Now, I've got this one because, again, this is quite an easy one to score, and it's something you're probably going to be able to score whilst you're going after some of your other glory. This one is obviously move at least 5 of your guys and have all 5 of them moved in the preceding action phase. Now, I think that's going to be fairly easy to do given the tactics you're going to be employing. You're not going to be attacking as much with this deck, you're going to be running around. So I think this is another easy win. Battle Without End. Now bear with me, alright? I know I said this was an objective heavy deck, but we're getting there. Now this one here is if you bring 2 or more friendly fires back in the preceding action phase, you'll get a glory. And again, you're going to be bringing guys back because they're going to be dying. So this is a glory point that you can get, I think, without really having to try too hard as well. And now that brings me on to the objectives. Now, I've put both Tactical Supremacy 1 and 2 and Tactical Supremacy 3 and 4 in here, because you don't know what you're going to get in your zone, you don't know what you're going to get near your zone, you don't know what your opponent's going to have. So I think having both of these and then playing it near the end when you know what you've got can be a real winner, especially as it's 2 each. That's possibly another 4 points there. And then Supremacy, this one is a must, I think, for any Khorne or Sepulchral Guard objective based deck. Get 3 points if you hold 3 or more objectives. That doubles your glory. Always a winner. Hold objective 1, hold objective 4, hold objective 3, hold objective 2, and hold objective 5. In no particular order there, but all the whole objective cards, because, well, let's face it, you're going after objectives, and that's what I said I was going to do. So that's the objective cards done. Now I'm going to move on to how I'm going to achieve it. Upgrade cards, the things you need to make sure that your guys can do what you need them to do. So I'm going to run through what I decided I think is needed in this deck. And as I mentioned before, speed is a necessity. So if you're going for speed, you're going to need to speed up your guys. So with that end, Frightening Speed is an obvious must. This one's going to give you +2 move to all your Harvester, Champion and Prince, and that's something you're going to have. I've then got Undying. Whilst your guys are going to die, if you get a guy near an objective that's deep in the enemy territory, you want to keep them alive as long as you can, and this may help make an opponent decide to go after somebody else rather than them. Legendary Swiftness for +1 move, so you could theoretically have +3 move on one of your guys. Great Fortitude. Another +1 wound, which is always handy. Could mean you push one of your guys up to 5 wounds, which is going to make them almost unmovable. Great Speed. Another +1 move, and another one that I think is almost definitely a must. And then I've gone for 2 more cards here. The Dazzling Key, which if you are holding objective 4 in the 3rd end phase scores 2 glory, so that's more glory points to harvest. And the Shadow Key, which is the same but for objective 2. So if you can chuck that on a guy in the last turn with a spare glory point, you're going to net another 2 at the very end of the game. And your opponent may not realise that that's what you're intending. And if you're really lucky, they're going to be buried deep in your side, so you're going to have a much easier time keeping hold of them. And then 2 more. Ancient Commander. I picked that one because you kind of want as much mobility as you can, and the ability to move 3 guys in one go is a given, as far as I'm concerned. And Remembered Shield, which makes the fighter's defense characteristic change to a shield, and that's for the Warden, the Prince, or Petitioners. And that's going to make a guy sitting on objective who you really don't want to lose that little bit more tough to kill. So those are the upgrades. And now it's on to the ploys. This is where you can really start to cause your opponent some grief. So what I've got here in my ploys is Fortify. You're going to be standing on a lot of objectives if you're lucky, so having +1 defense for anybody on an objective in the next activation really gives your opponent pause for thought as to where he wants to attack. It might help you protect an objective for that 1 extra vital turn. Shifting Charge. You can move an objective 1 hex. Now if you can't get to the objective, maybe it's easier to bring that objective to you. And I think that's going to be a brilliant one for if your opponent thinks that something's safe, and then you just nudge it your way a little bit more. Confusion. There's nothing better than having an opponent who's sitting on an objective feeling all smug and thinking they're okay, suddenly realising that no, they're standing out in the cold and you're sitting there smug. Sprint. Combine that with some of the pluses to movement, and suddenly you've got a guy who can do an end field run. I don't know, there's a sporty term there, I don't do sport, but you can have a bloke leg it all the way across, and that's really going to throw your opponent out if you do that at the last moment to snatch an objective. Sidestep. Move somebody an extra square, one of your guys of course, and that's always handy to have, especially seeing as the Sepulchral Guard are a little lacking on movement. Dance Macabre. Now this is useful anyway to give any friendly fighter that has a move action in the next activation 1 additional hex of movement. You combine that with Ancient Commander to move 3 guys, and you combine that with some of the extra movement that you might have, and suddenly you can have 3 guys sprinting all over the place that your opponent never thought was going to happen. Bone Shrapnel. This one isn't so much useful for getting objectives, but it's +1 damage. Well, it's just an extra damage inflicted on someone should they take one of your guys out, which is always a nice little extra to have. Terrifying Screams. This one's a great one. Choose an enemy fighter and push them 1 hex. Now you might want to push an opponent off of an objective so you can steal it, or so that you can then pull that objective closer to you. Restless Dead. Obvious one here. Bring back one of your guys from the dead, obviously not the Warden, and put them on a starting hex. Just means that sometimes it frees up that resurrection for somebody else that you might need to bring back if you've got more than 1 guy out, or maybe you actually want to do something with them, might want to attack with them or move them. Spectral Form. Now this one means you can move a friendly fighter through other fighters. Doesn't say through other friendly fighters, just through all other fighters. Now you combine that with any of your movement you've got here and all the other cards, and suddenly you could have someone sprinting through everybody to get to an objective that your opponent thought was nice and safe. So that is my choice for a objective driven deck. I like to think especially things like Spectral Form with all the extra movements is going to come in real handy. I also think that all your cards in here, especially these 2, the Shadow Key and the Dazzling Key, you can get those. That's 4 objectives, or 4 glory rather, should I say. Combine it with some of these guys and you could end up scoring quite highly. And obviously Claim the City is going to be one of the toughest because you can score that in any end phase. So if you're lucky enough and you can get that early, you could really put yourself in the lead. Now the tactics with this deck are pretty simple. You're not going to go on the offense as much. You might want to charge sometimes because you might be able to charge to get you onto an objective and attack an opponent. But a lot of the time you're going to be using a Sepulchral Warden to do a lot of manoeuvring to get all your guys into a position to just try and swamp the objectives. You want to try and give your opponent too many targets and really give them a problem to decide who they want to hit first. we'll see how this plays out. I'm going to be using this against Robin in one of our soon-to-come matches, and we shall see who is the victor. Up next will be an uber offensive undead deck. As always, if I've missed anything obvious, if you think I'm putting some cards in I shouldn't, or I've left some cards out that I really do need for this tactic, do let me know in the comments below, and happy wargaming! Bye! Now, one thing I have realised already is that in my deck of objectives, one card I did miss out, which is almost a given, is Determined Defender. Scoring an end phase of the same friendly fighters held the same objective at least 2 consecutive action phases. It's pretty much a given, so I am going to have to try and find room for that in my deck, because I'm going to have an objective in my backfield that I'm going to have a petitioner just sitting on doing nothing. So I think what I'll do is I'll get rid of one of the cards where I was involved in killing somebody, and I'll be putting this one in. I'm not sure exactly which one I'm going to get rid of yet, but it's something to keep Robin guessing. Anyway, till next time, bye!